All right, welcome to the Roundtable. I'm your host, Brian Thompson, and we're here with our correspondents, John Kirby, Mark Seisler, Joe Gately, and special guest, coach of the boys basketball team, Mr. Grady. Let's start by talking about the Celtics. They actually snapped their 5-game losing streak in a win against Cleveland. How do we feel about that?
I thought it was a good win. Cleveland is actually decent with Kyrie Irving. Well, I mean, not a playoff team, but
Respectable.
I thought it was a good win.
I wasn't that impressed with the win. I mean, they had
Every week.
they had to pull it out at the end against not a great team, and it doesn't look good right now for the Celtics. Going into the playoff season, like the 7th seed, gonna probably have to play the Pacers, who are a lot better than Cleveland. So.
Well, I mean, we didn't have Kevin Garnett or Courtney Lee in that game.
But
Rondo's gone too.
yeah,
People forgot about it.
and at the same time, it's not like Cleveland had everybody. Obviously, they lost Anderson Varejao earlier this year, and then Kyrie Irving and Deion Waiters weren't playing either. So it was a bad struggle. So
I think, I mean, it's a team that needed a win at this point. I mean, they had a 5-game losing streak. It's good to see Jeff Green get a little bit more involved. I think it depends on really what you think this Celtics team is going to do. If I don't think they're going to be able to win a championship, but it seems like people are okay with that, especially after the trade deadline, and just they're kind of enjoying this group of guys, like a Garnett or a Pierce, kind of bring along some of these younger players, and hopefully someone like Jeff Green can continue to develop.
Jeff Green is becoming more and more of a bigger role. Would you give him the ball in the last 3 seconds consistently?
I absolutely would. I think that Doc Rivers was watching the show, took my advice, and gave the ball to Jeff Green instead of Paul Pierce. I think that Paul Pierce should not get the ball at the end of the game, that Jeff Green should take his starting role and get the ball, be the go-to guy at the end of the game.
Even with KG back, once he gets back?
Well, I mean, if they need a 3, give it to Jeff Green, but if they need a 2, I'd like to see Kevin Garnett posting somebody up.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree with that. I'd like to see them give Jeff Green the ball more in clutch situations and see what he can do, but as of right now, it's usually going to be a drive to the right hand near the hoop, and I don't know how consistently that's going to be able to win games. So if it's like playoffs, I'd like to see them give the ball back to Paul Pierce, a proven clutch player.
Yeah, definitely. Jeff Green has proved to be a really explosive player, and even though people know that he is going to drive when the game is on the line, he's still able to do it. So I think it was a smart move to give it to him at the end of the game against Cleveland.
Yeah, I think especially in that situation, I mean, Pierce is one of the greatest Celtics scorers of all time, but I think at this point in his career, he's not going to get to the foul line at the end of a game. Like Jeff Green, in that play, drove to the basket. If he got fouled, he would have gotten to the line. Most of those last-second shots for Pierce at this point are kind of fadeaway jumpers from the elbow. Garnett isn't really as physical anymore, too. He's more of a pick-and-pop guy. And at that point of the game, in that type of situation, you want to be able to take the ball to the basket hard. I think Jeff Green was a good call.
Yeah, well, KG is out for 2 weeks. How do you think that's going to affect the team? It's already been pretty negative as of right now, but do you think that we can come back from this now that we have a little momentum with the win?
I wouldn't call it momentum, but I mean, Kevin Garnett is the heart and soul of the team, especially on the defensive end. I think he should be the captain. What? Come on. I also think that it's going to be detrimental to the team, and also missing Courtney Lee.
I know that injuries are hurting us, but it is giving some good development time to the younger players like Avery Bradley, and not that Jeff Green is that young, but he's getting a lot more minutes than he did see in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think Garnett is seriously injured. I think it's more of a situation where, they're going to get into the playoffs. I think it's more built-in rest more than anything else. And I think, as much of a Celtic great Pierce really is, I think this is Kevin Garnett's team. He's the backbone defensively. I think he's kind of the face of the team at this point, and they need to make sure that he's ready to go for the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm definitely pretty worried because we're only 2 games above the Milwaukee Bucks for the 8th spot, and I really wouldn't want to see us playing the Heat first round, even though that they lost last night, breaking their tremendous streak. But that's definitely a lot harder of a team to beat than the Pacers. No disrespect to the Pacers or anything, but the Heat know how to beat the Celtics. It's come down to...
And we know how to beat the Heat.
We know how to beat the Heat, but with these injuries and KG just coming back for that series, it could definitely be tough.
Well, without KG, our defense has been on a bit of a decline the past month, so what can we do to fix that? Who needs to get involved and step up?
Well, obviously, the guy who's playing KG's spot, Brandon Bass, needs to step up, and he did last night with 22 points. Not on the defensive end, but I think he contributed a lot more. I mean, that was his season high in points, and I think that he should get the ball a little more.
Yeah, I think it's going to be impossible to completely make up for what Kevin Garnett does. Obviously, he's one of the best in the game. And I think that it's going to be really hard to find someone that can fill in, even do it a little less than him, because we just don't have that size, that big center. Chris Wilcox is more of a power forward, but he might step up a little bit. It's definitely going to be a struggle.
What do you think about Shavlik Randolph and DJ White?
I love that guy.
Yeah.
I actually do.
Yeah.
I don't know why, it just gives me this vibe.
Yeah, he's done well in limited minutes. An expanded role would be nice to see for a few games.
Yeah, well, it's not just defense. It's not just a defensive struggle. It's also a lot of rebounding since we don't have KG and obviously Sellinger's out. That we're lacking a lot down low, and that's been a big problem. Is opposing teams getting offensive rebounds.
I think it's a team effort that it's just not there, especially with the leader of Kevin Garnett. I think a little energy, but also some team defense and stuff like that. Coming over to help on drives, especially watching the Knicks and having J.R. Smith and Carmelo both go off for 30. It just shows that a lack of help when they're driving and realizing that the picks and stuff, it just led to combined 60 points. It's just, that can't happen.
And I don't think I agree with Mark. I mean, I don't think you can make up for what Kevin Garnett brings to this team defensively. He's the best talker defensively. He's a 7-footer who can kind of challenge guys out on the perimeter. They're going to have to do it as a team, but I don't think they're going to be able to make up, what he can normally do on the court.
I think that Carmelo went off because KG wasn't there talking about his wife. So I think that Carmelo was in a better mindset of Kevin Garnett being there.
Jeff Green definitely D'd him up pretty well. Seeing just the one-on-one matchups, Carmelo is one of the elite players in the NBA, and even great defense isn't going to keep him from having a good night. So I think this was something that we could have expected, but something that we could have prepared for.
Well, in other NBA news, Joe has already spoiled this for all you viewers, but the NBA, the Miami Heat streak is over at 27 games. What's ESPN going to talk about all day long now, guys?
I think it's about time. I think it should have happened a few games back when they played the Celtics. I mean, Pierce just hucked up a 3. I mean, I shouldn't have gone down like that, but thank God it's over.
What do you really have against Paul Pierce, John?
He doesn't hustle. He doesn't hustle. He's not a hustle player.
But I also think in an 82 game season now, and I know it's not great. I certainly don't like it as a coach, but it's realistic that guys have to think big picture, and like Paul Pierce needs to make sure he's ready for the playoffs. Kevin Garnett needs to make sure he's ready for the playoffs. And it's frustrating because it might mean, last year we had like 3 weeks or a month of irrelevant basketball for the Celtics. But, that's the way to go in the NBA. And, it's not great for a fan, but if their goal is to do as well as they can, I think they do kind of have to shut down, especially with a lot of older players. But
I think Paul Pierce needs to take a page out of Brian Scalabrini's book, start getting some Tommy points, and pick up the hustle.
Okay, I respect that. I just wanted to know.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's also pretty old, so he's got to think about not burning it all out this year.
Well, that's pretty selfish.
We should go back to Brian's point about the Miami Heat.
Okay. I think that ESPN can talk about the Nuggets. They're still winning.
No, they lost. The longest current win streak in the NBA right now is the New York Knicks with 5.
Celtics are shortly trailing with 1.
I know as I presume Boston fans, we don't like the Heat, but I think you have to respect 27 wins. I don't like LeBron. I don't like D Wade, but 27 wins is 27 wins. That's pretty impressive in being able to go through that schedule and the travel and everything and make sure that you're prepared and even the quote unquote easy games, not taking them lightly. 27 wins is impressive, but I'm sure I'm thankful that we can watch ESPN and hear about something else.
They were on a decline for a while, though. It was like 5 of the last 6 games they trailed by 10 or more. Especially we went to the Cavs by 27.
Yep.
Yeah, that was crazy. We do have to move on to the NCAA now. Yeah, the March Madness. So we're down to the Sweet 16. It's a great round. Does anybody have any big upsets going into the Elite Eight?
Well, I think everyone's on the Florida Gulf Coast bandwagon at this point. They're just a fun team to watch.
I'm riding shotgun.
Yeah. So I could definitely see them making it to the Elite Eight. I think it'll be a good game, and I could see them easily winning.
I'm looking at the Wichita State-LaSalle game. A 9 and a 13 going at it in the Sweet 16, going for place in the Elite Eight. It'll definitely be cool to see how these two smaller schools compare to either Arizona or Ohio State in the Elite Eight.
I got to give it to LaSalle there. They're just so athletic, and from what I've seen, they rebound really well and just playing a really all-around game.
Yeah, the Explorers are a great team.
But Wichita has had some quality wins against Pittsburgh and Gonzaga to get them here. So I think that with their energy and the story they've had so far, I think that they can pull it off over LaSalle.
Pitt was a big win, but Gonzaga isn't as big a win as it seems. It's a big win, but Gonzaga really shouldn't have been a 1 seed in my mind, looking back on how easy their schedule was.
I think obviously Florida Gulf Coast is kind of getting the attention right now. I'm looking at Michigan. If they could get by Kansas, and I know Kansas is a very good team, but John Beilein is a great coach. I think he's done a really nice job at Michigan. If they could get by Kansas, I could definitely see them going to the Final Four. I think the Louisville bracket is by far the deepest one. Even at this point, Louisville and a very underrated Oregon team. A lot of people didn't give them any credit going into the tournament, but I think they proved they belong. And that Michigan State-Duke game, two great coaches in Izzo and Krzyzewski, 2 great programs. That's the deepest bracket, I think. And I think for anyone to come out of that, it's going to be really a tough weekend for them.
Do you think Oregon can beat Louisville?
I don't. I mean, I think Oregon has had a nice run, but I think Louisville can just do too much defensively. I mean, there's no real superstar. Like, I don't see a ton of future NBA talent. Guys might make teams and stuff, but I think they play really well together.
Kirby, you have Q's as the champion, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you're pretty confident. Sorry, you're pretty confident they're going to beat Indiana.
Yeah. And going back to Mr. Grady's point about Michigan and Kansas, Kansas only beat Western Kentucky by 7 points. So I mean, Michigan could upset them.
Yeah, Kansas really hasn't had that great of a tournament, beating a Western Kentucky team that was far
They're a great
inferior
Whoa.
than Kansas. And
What's
then
their mascot, John?
Hilltoppers.
Oh, so you looked it up.
and then only beating North Carolina by a couple, especially with a bad game by Ben McLemore, and having to really come back when they were down. So it'll be interesting to see how they play with Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway Jr.
I know McLemore's your favorite player, Mark. Did he even make a shot?
He made 2 free throws. 0 for 9 from the floor, but I think that just shows how good this team really is, because they can overcome one of, if not their best players' worst night ever, and still beat an alright team. I'd like to see what they can do if he has a good game and Whitty comes to play like he has been and he just continues to be a defensive force.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, looking at the brackets, you can't really pick a favorite. I mean, I think it's been that way for the entire tournament, but I think college basketball's gotten to a point where your mid-major conferences are getting closer to the elite. I think college sports in general the whole landscape has changed so much that it's really pretty level at this point. I mean, there are 16 teams left, and I couldn't even tell you, who the certain favorite is. I think it could be 5 or 6 teams walking away with the championship.
And how are your brackets? How's everybody doing with those?
Well, mine's not too good. Seeing Western Kentucky was out in the first round, Notre Dame was out in the first round. I still have Louisville and Q's in, but other than that, just not a good year.
Yeah, I think my Final Four is still all in except Georgetown. That was a mistake. But
Yeah, Georgetown was a definite freak accident.
Total bracket buster. I mean, I gotta
mean,
be honest.
You might as well throw away your bracket at that point. I mean, everyone had Georgetown, but Florida Gulf Coast only being
well, they're the first 15 seed in the Sweet 16
yeah,
history.
It's a pretty big deal, especially only being in their second year of eligibility to be in the bracket. It shows that a small team like this can really show up at times when they need to.
I had Georgetown. I also had New Mexico, not because I have a lot of faith in New Mexico. I looked at that bracket with Gonzaga. I thought Wisconsin or New Mexico might be able to walk away with that. I'm still happy to see Harvard beat them. I think that's a good story. But my bracket is pretty much torn up at this point.
Agreed. So we actually have some live footage of Joe here covering the brackets.
Not live.
Let's go. Almost live. Let's go to that.
Alright, I'm here to discuss the brackets. So up here was the Temple and Indiana game. Temple definitely put up a good fight on the back of Khalif Wyatt having over half their points. But the Indiana Hoosiers just proved to be too big and too physical for the Temple Owls. Right here was California Syracuse. Syracuse came out with the win, 66-60. I guess the 2-3 zone just couldn't overpowered the California front line. Here was the game of the region, Butler against Marquette. Came down to the final seconds, but Marquette came out with the win of 74-72. Here, Miami was scared by the Illinois Fighting Illini, but they came out with the win, winning by 4, 63-59. And here we have the Sweet 16 of Indiana and Syracuse on March 28th at 9:45. And here is Marquette and Miami playing at 7:15 the same day. Now, if we could go to the next, right? All right. Here's the Kansas-North Carolina game. Kansas started out slow, but they managed to come back and beat North Carolina pretty handily. Here was VCU and Michigan. Michigan manhandled VCU 78-53, winning by 25 points. Their guard play just destroyed the great defense of VCU and got the win. Here, Minnesota and Florida. Florida up by over 20 points at the end of the first half. Were scared by a run by Minnesota, getting them only up by 8. But they managed to keep the lead and expand and keep it going to eventually get the win. Here, San Diego State and the Cinderella story of Florida Gulf Coast University. Florida Gulf Coast continues their amazing run and is going to the Sweet 16. Here's the game. March 29th at 10 o'clock is Florida and Florida Gulf Coast. It'll be interesting to see if Florida Gulf Coast can beat a high seed like Florida after their wins against Georgetown and San Diego State. And here, Michigan versus Kansas, the battle between the great backcourts handled by Trey Burke, and for Kansas, Ben McLemore. Next one. All right. Here, Colorado State and Louisville. Louisville continues their great defense and outstanding guard play by Peyton Siva and Russ Smith. Here, Oregon upsets Louisville 74-57. Here, Memphis and Michigan State. Michigan wins handily 70-48. And here, Creighton versus Duke. With a close game for most of the game, Duke pulls away and wins by 16. And for the Sweet 16, Louisville will play the underdogs of Oregon. And here, Duke will play Michigan State on March 29th. All right. Here, Gonzaga was upset by Wichita State. You could say that the Shockers shocked the world. Ole Miss and LaSalle. LaSalle came up with a win, setting up a 9-13 Sweet 16. Here, Arizona played Harvard and won pretty handily. And down here, Iowa State and Ohio State. Very close game, but with a game winner by Aaron Kraft. Lifts the Buckeyes to their 4th straight Sweet 16. Here, Arizona and Ohio State will play March 28th at 7:47, and Wichita State and LaSalle will play on March 28th at 10:17.
Welcome back to the Roundtable. Baseball season is upon us, and we have our opening day coming up April 1st against the Yankees. How do you guys think that the Sox are going to do this season?
I think that the Red Sox will do better than the Yankees.
Oh, yeah.
Slightly. I don't see the Red Sox winning the division or anything. I think that's up to the Blue Jays or the Tampa Bay Rays.
No doubt.
But it'll be interesting to see how the Red Sox do with the new faces in the AL East.
I think the Yankees are going to embarrass the Red Sox
Why?
because they have at least 3 Hall of Famers.
Jeter's injured. Who are the others? Mariano Rivera is coming back from a torn ACL.
Yep.
With 1 season left to play.
He's a pitcher.
Okay, all right.
What's the ACL got to do with that?
Pitching's all on the legs. All right, so who are the 3 Hall of Famers?
Mariano Rivera. A-Rod.
A-Rod's out for like the entire year.
Oh, never mind. Poor A-Rod.
Still
Go
gonna.
Sox.
I really think that the Blue Jays are gonna run away with the AL East, no question. It's not even gonna be a battle.
I think that the top two teams will be the Red Sox and the Blue Jays because the Blue Jays have some fresh new pitchers and in R.A. Dickey and his supporting cast and some big bats coming into the lineup.
Huge.
Yeah, who do you think is going to be the major contributor?
I could see Matt Kemp really putting in some good time.
I agree. He's going to be big for them. I do, however, think that the Red Sox can win the division. So the Red Sox are going to win the division. In my mind. What about you, Joe?
I think the Blue Jays definitely are going to win it. The Red Sox rotation is decent, but I think that if they can get pitchers like Felix Dubronc to really step up in his second year with the Sox, it'll definitely help the Sox go into a possible race for the AL East.
Yeah, and I mean Jackie Bradley Jr. I called this guy from like day one. I mean, you can really see he's a rookie. He worked his way up from the farmers leagues, and the farm system, and he is just contributing in spring training and in his preseason already. So I could really see him playing a pivotal role, and I think he should start.
Where would you play him?
I would play him at shortstop, his natural position.
He's an outfielder.
Yeah, backup. He's
I meant within the outfield, like right, left, or center.
Oh yeah, I definitely go left because that way he doesn't have to work too hard because most of them are right-handed pitchers.
You think he can play the monster?
Oh yeah, I mean he's got that leaping ability. Yeah.
Let's move on.
All right. So, in my mind, I think that the Red Sox are going to take away the division because we got a lot of fresh new faces and young bats coming
Like
into the
Bradley
lineup.
Jr.
Jackie Bradley Jr. Yes, the kid that I called.
I think it's going to be tough for the Sox, especially with Ellsbury starting off the season on the DL. Is it time to rethink that we should part ways with him just because he's so injury prone?
I like the fact that he planted roots. He started in, I think, Greenville and worked his way through Portland and Pawtucket to get up here. Yeah, the farm system. And he's been on the team for
7 teams in it.
Yeah, he's right. He's been on the team for almost a decade now, and he's becoming an elite player. Before he got the shoulder injury, he was going to be one of the best outfielders in the game, and he's still up there. It's just he's a little injury prone, but I still think that he's a solid contributor. All right. So I don't know if the Red Sox are necessarily a World Series champion this year, but I think they're definitely a playoff team because they are playing in the best division. So even though it's tough, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think definitely with the 2 wild card team addition to the playoff system is definitely going to help the Sox.
Oh yeah.
Especially in a tough division where it's not they don't necessarily have to win the division to get into the playoffs, or have to deal with other teams fighting for 1 wild card spot.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on the Roundtable. Next week, we're going to continue our look at the road to the Final Four, see how the Sox are faring in their first week, look at the Bruins and their trading habits, continue our Celtics coverage. Hopefully they'll have a 27-game win streak soon. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.